The Rock says, well, to be honest, The Rock says a lot of things, and the vast majority of it is not worth listening to. The Rock has this thing about turning up, and then not turning up, and then promising to turn up, and then being annoyed at people for saying that he's not going to turn up when he then doesn't turn up. The Rock turned up, turned John Cena, and then did not turn up, but Travis Scott did, which was not an improvement, and did not in any way make WrestleMania a bigger ordeal. Well, ordeal is probably a good word for it. Let's talk about The Rock. Because while The Rock does offer certain bonuses to WWE and has done for a very long time, he also offers a lot of drawbacks. In fact, I would argue for the last year, The Rock has only been a drawback. There's an argument to be made that last year at WrestleMania, with the tag match and the subsequent main event between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, we saw the best of The Rock. There's also an argument to be made this year, with him not showing up, that this was the worst of The Rock. But let's go back through, because there's a lot to cover here. I'm Tom Colohue. We're going to have a podcast here. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. And we're going to talk about The Rock, because he's one of the biggest names in the business, and in fact in wrestling history. One of the only names to ever rival the great one that was Hulk Hogan. The names that go beyond wrestling. Someone who went out into Hollywood and then came back to wrestling to try and bring some of that allure back with him. This is a man who is genuinely dedicated to the WWE. A member of the board for TKO now. This is someone who's genuinely trying to make sure that the WWE is one of the major players in the world of entertainment. I'm not talking sports entertainment. I'm talking entertainment. This is a man who wants the WWE to be on par with the NFL. Now, it could be that he wants them to be a licensed sport in their own right. It also could be that he wants the NFL to tell you who's going to win beforehand so he can make more money. Rich people do that, or so I've heard. So it's a difficult one to work out. There is clear dedication to wrestling, but there's also a very clear dedication to the man himself. He knows how to build his own legacy. He knows how to make himself a big deal, and he knows how to ensure that what The Rock says is the only thing you hear. The Rock is the main character in the WWE. Even when he's not there, people are saying like, where's Poochie? And where is Poochie? When did The Rock go back to his home planet? And when's he coming back, if at all? Difficult one to answer. Let's jump into it. I want to start with the positives, because there are a lot of positives as regards The Rock and the appearances that he makes. The Rock is a huge name, first and foremost, in the wrestling industry. WrestleMania 40 peaked with the match between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. The Rock really helped to elevate that rivalry before the story was finished. The Avengers assembling element doesn't happen without The Rock. It also gave that moment to Solo Sikoa, who had the big moment the year before. It gave a moment to Jey Uso after having a very poor match with Jimmy Uso that could have derailed an entire push. The Rock was the focus for a reason. He was the final boss. He got people talking. The column inches dedicated to the WWE upon The Rock's return were limitless. This is a man who knows how to work the media. He knows how to work wrestling. He has enough connections and enough friends in high places to make sure that everyone was keeping an eye on him to see what he was going to do next. This is what the WWE is built on. Spiking engagement. Making people care. TikTok was dedicated to The Rock. YouTube was dedicated to The Rock. The WWE knew what they were doing. And it was also part of this whole TKO legacy. The intent of the board was to leverage his name for their own benefit as much as humanly possible. They did that. Some of the social media appearances, some of the swearing, some of the long, rambling garbage that he posted on Twitter, that he posted on Instagram. It was so bad you couldn't take your eyes off it. So it was good. They received more social media attention than they had in years. And all of that attention went to Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. the passing of that torch. We will get to the concept that he wasn't actually supposed to be doing that, but that is what happened. The Rock's intentions we'll cover shortly, but when it comes to what actually happened, Triple H took full advantage of the situation, and he made it less about The Rock and more about Roman Reigns, more about Cody Rhodes, more about Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. He made it, the appearance of The Rock, about Damian Priest, which really helped to elevate everyone. So The Rock's star power does translate. There's also a natural nostalgia to it. The Rock had the potential to bring back lapsed fans, and this is part of the strategy that the WWE have been using to compete with AEW. Yes, while they don't consider them competition, they still want to steal their audience. AEW was celebrating the fact that they were gathering lapsed WWE fans by offering something that WWE fans hadn't seen since Attitude Era, since Ruthless Aggression Era, the time that they stopped watching. The Rock wrestled in both of those eras. He did bring people back. The average age of a wrestling viewer increased during segments that The Rock was featured. During a time as well that the average age of a WWE viewer was in the 60s. This has come down to the 40s now since we've had Bad Bunny's involvement, since we've had Logan Paul's involvement, since we've had Rey Mysterio's involvement. They brought in a lot of younger eyes. But The Rock also brought in a whole collection of people who were tempted by things like AEW, who were tempted by things like New Japan, who were tempted by TNA, or who just weren't tempted by anyone and just stopped. He walks in, the crowd goes wild, people start paying attention, and that Attitude Era feel returns. The booking of the main event of WrestleMania, I've mentioned the Avengers Assemble, was so incredibly Attitude Era that if you're a follower of this channel, I predicted every damn beat of that show. Both nights. Because I've watched enough Attitude Era to be able to do so. It was The Rock through and through. But it was also another Attitude Era star, Triple H. The two of them working in tandem, there's the positive impact. The negative impact comes when Triple H is cut out of the deal. The Rock is still being used for certain big moments. He's used by Dave Meltzer to hype up Royal Rumbles. He has been for a number of years. Nobody knows why. But every year for the past 7 years, somebody at WWE has said to Dave Meltzer, hey, The Rock's going to be in the Rumble. You should report it. And then giggled to themselves when he did. The Wrestling Observer historically reports that he will be there. Then they report that he won't be there. Both sets of headlines are reported by mainstream media all over the world. If you want to make it as a wrestling journalist, always report both sides of the story, by which I mean report that things are and are not going to happen. For moments like WrestleMania, the idea that The Rock would turn up in the John Cena-Cody Rhodes match was a prevailing thought until the moment that the show finished. I was live during that, and we had people saying, while the credits were rolling, it's time for The Rock. The Rock's going to show up. The Rock's going to be here. And he wasn't. We had people saying he'd be there for the Raw after WrestleMania. He wasn't. But he got people tuning in on the chance. How many months of this is the one CM Punk's going to turn up at? Did people tune in just in case? How many nights of, Sasha Banks and Naomi are backstage, but they ran out of time to appear? Because people on Twitter make stuff up, and it works in WWE's favour. Because people tune in, expecting it to be true, and when it's not, the WWE can say, hand on heart, we never suggested that. How many weeks did we not see AJ Lee? And how many times have you seen on social media, AJ Lee must be coming? Until she eventually does. But the WWE never promised you anything. Those people on social media are letting you down, but WWE aren't exactly stopping them. In fact, For a while, I was working live shows on Twitch, and when I spoke to management on Twitch about the live shows and why WWE watch-alongs struggle because WWE full shows are available on Twitch, the Twitch employee in question said to me, WWE don't want us to do anything about it. Because WWE don't care that you can watch WWE illegally. They just want you to watch. As long as you are watching on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, it doesn't matter. As long as you are aware of the WWE, they've got you. And The Rock appearing or not appearing gets millions of people's attention. The peak of wrestling was during the rise of The Rock. And the fact that he's not popping up every week doesn't matter. Because one day, he might. We saw boosts not just in viewership, but also in the actual business. We saw ticket demand increase. We saw, when he was rumoured to be appearing at Bad Blood, suddenly the last few tickets shifted. When he was announced at Elimination Chamber, the rumour is it's because tickets weren't selling well and he happened to be available. So they announced The Rock, and suddenly not only were tickets selling, but tickets were much, much more expensive. When it comes to The Rock, he is used, and he is happy to be. Because when you are that name, when you are Steve Austin wrestling Kevin Owens, when you are one of the older names wheeled out for a Hall of Fame induction, you know why you're there. It's not about you. You're there to bring your fans back so that the WWE have a chance to convince them to stay. WWE are also using The Rock for non-wrestling events. They launched the whole kickoff show format where they just gathered everyone in the city and said, hey, I can talk. And Rhea Ripley drank out of a shoe. Apparently that's a thing. Why would you? None of my business. WWE use him as an opportunity to say to Netflix, hi, if you sign this deal with us, you'll get The Rock, maybe. They use him for the first show on Fox. The Rock is a name that they wheel out to market, that they wheel out to sell, and that they wheel out sometimes to sell out. So it's another benefit of The Rock. But in addition to that, I've mentioned it earlier, he can elevate talent. He can make people bigger. He can draw more attention to Cody Rhodes, to Seth Rollins, to people who are already those huge names. But also, in having him on the show, he drew attention to Liv Morgan. He drew attention to everyone who was on that show. He drew attention to El Grande Americano, as he should, for a show that he wasn't even on. That's an opportunity. People tuning in to see The Rock, see El Grande Americano and think, hey, 10 years ago I saw that guy wrestling in Brazil. He was in Bahia. He came from the Gulf of America, which apparently isn't Brazil, but is very much everywhere else and nowhere because it doesn't exist. This is an opportunity for so many members of that roster to show out when the ratings pop up to see The Rock. It is up to them to convince wrestling fans, I should say, to stay. And it is up to The Rock to convince them to watch. So if people aren't watching, it's not their fault. But if people aren't staying, it very much is. Now, of course, we're now going to get into the downsides. So let's immediately talk about the elevation of young talent, shall we? He definitely drew attention to some relatively well-known names. He definitely put some focus onto names like Seth Rollins, like Drew McIntyre, like Cody Rhodes. People who were about to hit their own element of big time. Of course, with Seth Rollins, he also immediately picked up a pretty major injury, so he wasn't really able to benefit from that. But he's Seth Rollins, so he made it work. In what way, way back when, did The Rock elevate the Wyatt family at WrestleMania 32? Genuine question. Drop a name in the comments of someone that The Rock has actually been able to elevate intentionally. Because for me, all of his focus was on names like Roman Reigns. The John Cena heel turn didn't help the situation in any way, shape or form. When The Rock returns to the WWE, he sticks his nose in immediately. He gets involved immediately, and it seems like, based on rumours coming out of WWE, that there is a huge tug-of-war happening in the creative section between what The Rock wants and what Triple H wants. Playing out in front of our very eyes. The Rock returned and said, I will be wrestling Roman Reigns. And Cody Rhodes, go F yourself. That wasn't a bit. That wasn't a storyline. That is what happened. He returned at Bad Blood after Roman Reigns and Jey Uso won a tag match. He did that. Then he vanished for months. About half a year. In what way is that helping anyone? Genuinely. Because for months the expectation was, oh, this is what it means. Oh, this is what it means. It meant nothing. Nothing. He played it off again when Elimination Chamber came. Now, the plan was for John Cena to turn heel for a while. The people he wanted to wrestle with were mostly faces. It was supposed to be huge. And I would say John Cena did a very, very good job early on when he was facing off against people like Randy Orton, like R-Truth. Not so much when he faced off against CM Punk. When he faced off in that first match against Cody Rhodes, that match was boring. That match was dull. I'm not willing to watch it again. I'm simply not willing. In what way did The Rock help John Cena? Because John Cena's only built momentum since The Rock vanished again. We are seeing storylines rewritten, and I'm so glad that Triple H stepped back in to convince The Rock that him against Roman Reigns was the wrong call. We saw The Rock wrestle for 40 minutes in a tag match. And by the way, when I say wrestle for 40 minutes, I mean he wrestled slower than the guy with a serious knee injury. The guy who couldn't stand up, The Rock was still more exhausted than that guy. That's where we were. If we had seen The Rock versus Roman Reigns, that would not have been a good match. It would have meant Cody Rhodes was not crowned champion again. Cody Rhodes still probably wouldn't have been the champion. And that simply isn't getting the WWE where it needs to be. He stuck his nose in for no reason. He stepped over full-time talent to do so. And this is where I want to talk about the roster, about backstage. The Rock is a popular name in wrestling. But when he returned, pushed Cody Rhodes to one side, and stepped into that match against Roman Reigns, that locker room turned. That locker room turned heavy. Even Roman Reigns was not particularly happy with how that went. The outpouring of support from social media, from fans, made it clear that The Rock should not be in that spot. The fans of now are not willing to cover The Rock in glory like the fans of yesteryear. And Cody Rhodes was ready for that spot. He had earned that spot. We also saw Seth Rollins in that tag match. In what way did that build up to the Drew McIntyre situation? In what way? Now, it was clearly designed to be a part of the finish of the match the next night, but how did it help Drew McIntyre? How did it help Damian Priest? Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins still managed to put a good match on, but imagine how much better that match would have been if Seth Rollins hadn't had to wrestle for 40 minutes the night before. If he'd had a chance to actually rest up. How much more risk of serious injury was added into that moment? And then we get to during actual shows, during Raw, during SmackDown. How much time was dedicated to The Rock? Because I'm telling you, he got about an hour a show. An hour a show where you could have had 8, 10 different wrestlers popping up, being involved, and being used. He took up both main events for WrestleMania, possibly kicking Seth and Drew out of that main event night one spot. But there was other wrestlers, Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley. There was other people who could have been in that spot, who deserved that spot, who had earned that spot. But no, it went to The Rock. Fans have been against the part-time concept for a long time. Even now with limited date contracts like those of Roman Reigns, he's not looked at as a part-timer. Randy Orton also has a limited date contract, not looked at as a part-timer. But someone like The Rock, who reappears every few years to stand in the ring and soak up the applause, to be acknowledged, someone who actually wouldn't even acknowledge Roman Reigns. You put the finger up. You don't do finger guns. It was disrespectful to the people who are there day in and day out. And the biggest problem when it comes to The Rock is that he's completely unreliable. Completely unreliable. You never know when he's going to be there. So how exactly can you build a storyline? How exactly can you push someone to the level where they can take on The Rock if he's not there? What can you actually do to build the next generation of wrestlers using The Rock if the next day when you're planning to use him, he's not available? If he can't step into the ring because he's got a film coming up and he can't risk injury? What can The Rock give you now that another name can't? What can The Rock give you that Roman Reigns can't? Nothing. Roman Reigns gives you far more than The Rock, in my opinion. Far more. If there's some Rock fans very upset with this concept, let me know in the comments what you think. Because I'd love to hear what you think The Rock offers that big names like Roman, like Cody, like Seth, like Becky don't already offer. I mentioned about WrestleMania 32 and how The Rock basically demolished the Wyatt family. Now, there were a couple of reasons for this and a couple of caveats I want to mention. The first foremost reason that they wanted to do this and have The Rock beat Eric Rowan in about 4 seconds is because they did want to somewhat erase the memory of Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus. Up until that point, Daniel Bryan and Sheamus had the shortest WrestleMania match in history. In many ways, this was The Rock apologising to Daniel Bryan after Daniel Bryan hit the heights that he did, and with Daniel Bryan severely injured quite a lot during this period. So there was this element of it where it was a rewriting of history and not necessarily for the worst thing. But this was a time, a year after Bray Wyatt had lost to The Undertaker. What exactly was being offered here? Was it 29? I've got that wrong, haven't I? No, I'm good. So Bray Wyatt needed it, and he didn't get it. He got nothing. One of the strongest talkers in wrestling in Bray Wyatt was humiliated by The Rock. Humiliated. He got nothing. And he struggled to recover. There are times when The Rock's appearances were a good thing. The build to Once in a Lifetime, which happened twice. The first time was okay. But we had a feud with John Cena and CM Punk when CM Punk had to introduce a promo from The Rock where The Rock talked about wrestling John Cena at WrestleMania even though CM Punk was the champion at the time. Where CM Punk had to lose to The Rock at the Royal Rumble, so once in a lifetime could happen twice. There are moments in which we could have had something great. But someone, and it's usually The Rock, loses their way and loses track of what they are supposed to be doing. Even The Rock's most recent appearances, turning John Cena heel, turning up a Bad Blood, they didn't offer anything that lasted. In the moment, the heel turn elimination chamber, I was all in. I was there for it. I really enjoyed it. I was able to report that The Rock would be at Bad Blood the day before he was. I feel very lucky and blessed in that. It's good for my career as a wrestling journalist. But he didn't offer anything that lasted. At WrestleMania, they had Travis Scott involved. Why? Who knows? What connection did Travis Scott have to John Cena other than the fact that he stood near The Rock at one point? It was baffling to me. It was so confusing. I'm not even sure what The Rock can do in future to pull this back. The Rock's a huge name. The Rock should be able to offer more, but even if he was there every week for a year, what can he do? If you can put him in a faction to lead it, he could lead Judgment Day. How will that help? How will that help? I don't feel that The Rock can add anything anymore. I know a lot of people are still excited for a Roman Reigns and The Rock feud. I don't think they're as excited as they think they are. I don't think there's a lot that can be offered there. And honestly, from where I'm sitting, we've already seen everything that The Rock has to offer. And I'm tired of it. I'm going to move on now and talk about Survivor Series War Games. This is coming up next weekend, and we will be watching that live. There are 4 matches currently announced, and honestly, I kind of expect there's only going to be 4 matches. We'll bookmark the show with a War Games and a War Games, which means that we are going to sort of squash Nikki Bella and John Cena more closely together than I think either of them would be particularly comfortable with, but we are where we are with that one. I suspect we'll open with the Women's War Games match, which will feature Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair and AJ Lee versus Nia Jax, Lash Legend, Asuka, Kairi Sane and Becky Lynch. There is an argument to be made that 2 of the wrestlers in this match are being set up to face Stephanie Vaquer for the Women's World Championship at WrestleMania. I've spoken about Becky Lynch being in that spot for several months, and I still think she's the most likely, but there's also talk at the moment of a Rhea Ripley heel turn, and that would mean a Rhea Ripley-Charlotte Flair feud, where Charlotte basically just gets beat up for several months, as we then head into Rhea Ripley versus Stephanie Vaquer. I personally think we will still get a Rhea Ripley heel turn down the road. We'll get Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky at WrestleMania. And then after Stephanie Vaquer beats Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, Stephanie Vaquer will then face Rhea Ripley around SummerSlam time and lose the championship. That would be a great first loss, let's be fair, and a long period of undefeated. For the match itself, I have the faces winning. I have Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair and AJ Lee picking up the win, because I think AJ Lee is heading into a big feud with Becky Lynch, and this is a great way to put her over. We also need Charlotte Flair to trust Rhea Ripley if there's going to be a heel turn, so I have the faces winning this one, and I think it just makes the most sense for me. John Cena takes on Dominic Mysterio. Now, this is second match that they will have for the Intercontinental Championship. The clear suggestion is that we're building to Dominic Mysterio winning the championship back, so that John Cena, when he loses his final match, and he will be losing his final match, doesn't have a championship attached to it, and he goes back to where it was. It was just a short run to give him the belt. I go in a slightly different direction. I have John Cena beating Dominic Mysterio, and then going on to face his eventual opponent Gunther, and losing the Intercontinental Championship there. Gunther then goes on the run that he was expected to have last year's WrestleMania, and ends up facing Brock Lesnar for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania, with Gunther beating Brock Lesnar. This is a match that both Gunther and Brock Lesnar have been trying to make happen for a while, and Brock Lesnar, to be clear, wants to lose to Gunther. Next up, we have Stephanie Vaquer versus Nikki Bella, a newly heel Nikki Bella, who will be working heel for a few more months, and likely will be working against your Alexa Blisses, your Charlotte Flairs, maybe a few more matches with Stephanie Vaquer, as we try and keep Stephanie Vaquer warm, powerful, strong in the build-up to WrestleMania. I have Stephanie Vaquer retaining. This is a scalp, and it's a good scalp. It's an opportunity for Stephanie Vaquer to beat a big name. And honestly, from where I'm sitting, it's a great position to be in. I think Vaquer versus Becky Lynch is a play at WrestleMania. I think Nikki Bella and Brie Bella versus tag team champions who will be, well, it'll be four corner, it's always a four corner, versus tag teams such as the Kabuki Warriors, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, and Nia Jax and Lash Legend makes the most sense to me. So Nikki and Brie Bella versus Nia Jackson Lash Legend versus Asuka and Kairi Sane versus Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. It's a great position for a lot of those women to be in for WrestleMania, and also continues the build to Charlotte being a face because she's not competing for top championships. So that's where I see that going. And yes, they would be the only faces in that match. It'd be heel heavy, and I'd kind of be into it. That leaves us with the men's War Games match. And before I say anything, it needs to be said, I so far have said that all faces will win. I don't think faces will win this one. We have CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns on one side versus Bron Breakker, Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar. This match is going to hurt. An early prediction, I expect Bron Breakker and Jey Uso to start this match. I think they have the stamina needed and also already have a natural chemistry. They've wrestled quite a few times, so it's going to be good for them. But the War Games matches are slow when they're still locked in cages. They only really kick in when we get to everyone already in the match. And then it's pure carnage. Logan Paul is there to fly. Jey Uso is there to fly. Brock Lesnar is there to throw people around, as is Roman Reigns. Cody Rhodes will be fighting a lot with Drew McIntyre, but also a lot with Logan Paul. There's a lot of feuds to renew here. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre could also be great to start this match. But I have the heels winning, because I think this is a moment that Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso begin to have their problems. I am finding it difficult to work out what our WrestleMania matches are going to be for a lot of these people. I think Jey Uso turns heel. I think we've been building to that for a while. I don't know when. I think this might be the night. But I think we might be building to a Jey Uso Roman Reigns again. That leaves us with a wide open spot for CM Punk, but I think CM Punk versus Bron Breakker might be where we're headed, eventually. It was going to be Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns, but that is now wide open, and I think given the choice, Roman would choose Jey, and I wouldn't blame him for that. So, I have 3 face wins and a heel win for Survivor Series War Games. A quick note about the podcast then. Thank you to everyone who's checking it out so far. Thank you to everyone who's enjoying it. We did a news brief on on Saturday, I should say, because we weren't able to go live. I'm still struggling a little bit with flu, but I'm not so bad that I can't record. You can likely hear my voice is slightly different. But I did just want to say thank you to everyone who hits like, everyone who leaves a comment, everyone who views this podcast. Hopefully you guys are continuing to enjoy it because I'm hearing plenty of good things from you, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who has checked out my work and who is enjoying it. I've been Tom Colohue, you've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.